Ladies, if you find yourself running to the bathroom when you cough, sneeze, run, or jump, you're leaking, this is called stress incontinence. Just know it's very common, but it's not normal. And there are solutions for this that does not require anything too invasive or surgery. And as a pelvic floor physical therapist, I see this all the time, and it doesn't necessarily mean that stress incontinence can be caused by having a baby or being overweight. Those things can add to having stress incontinence at some point in your life, but many women who have never had kids struggle with this as well. So today we're going to talk about what is stress incontinence and why do you pee and leak yourself when you're coughing or sneezing. Because stress incontinence affects so many women, it's important to know that your pelvic floor muscles may be part of the culprit and why this is happening. And if you want to see what that means and what I'm talking about, you think of Kegel exercises or doing those exercises where you're really training the pelvic floor muscles because your bladder is in this space and your pelvic floor is at the bottom of your pelvis, supporting those pelvic organs. And if you've had bladder problems and maybe your doctor tells you just go do your Kegel exercises and you're still leaking when you cough or sneeze, just know this is not necessarily a strength issue and can't always be solved with just doing Kegel exercises. If you are jumping, you want to work out, you want to run, maybe you're sick and you keep coughing over and over and you're losing control of your bladder and it seems to be getting worse, well, one of the biggest reasons why this happens is the reflex between your brain and your pelvic floor muscles down here is not functioning properly. Normally, what should happen is your pelvic floor muscles, they're recoil and they constrict a little bit to support your bladder when you're doing anything that's providing more pressure against that area. So if you cough or sneeze and you're bearing down and putting more pressure into that abdominal cavity, therefore your pelvic floor muscles are going to do this rather than doing this and supporting it. So think of your pelvic floor like a trampoline. It has to constrict, but it also has to lengthen and let go. And when you have that forceful pressure into your abdominal cavity here, by coughing, sneezing, doing anything that's really pressing down on that area, you lose control. Can this be trained? Well, yes. It's actually a reflex that in normal functioning, you should be able to restrict and kind of protect that area by pulling in the pelvic floor to protect it from lengthening and letting go when you cough or sneeze or jump. So this is one of the things that we love to teach as pelvic floor physical therapists. It is such a myth that women should have to deal with this and have to deal with leaking or wearing a pad or dark colored yoga pants just to pretend like it's not happening when you want to do these activities or when you're coughing, it's getting worse. So how do you train it? Well, the number one thing is if you were to see a pelvic floor physical therapist, one thing we're going to assess is, are those muscles actually capable of constricting and letting go, both of those directions? So like any other muscle in your body, you have to contract it, but you also have to lengthen it. And we want to make sure it can go between those stages, because if not, we need to either work on the strength or we need to work on letting it go and relaxing it so it can support when you have more pressure in your abdominal cavity to be able to support that area and support your bladder. Now, that is the first thing. If you have not seen a pelvic floor physical therapist, I'm going to talk about a couple things that you can do on your own to see if it can help it. And if it's not getting better, that's where I would definitely recommend going to consult with a pelvic floor therapist that can really solve this for good. Now, one of the biggest things that we go back to is breathing exercises. And this sounds very basic, very simple, but breathing exercises can truly be the key to get that reflex back in action so your pelvic floor muscles can do the work. So when I am going to give a little demo here, what that looks like if you take a deep inhale Through your nose, your diaphragm drops. And as you exhale, your diaphragm goes up. So you're just gonna go back and forth into some breathing. And you can go back after this video and watch my video on diaphragmatic breathing, what that looks like, because that can be truly helpful in just resetting your body so your brain can connect to your muscles better. So working on your inhale and exhale sounds very simple, but many people breathe from up here, not down here in their belly and through the rib cage. So we want that, and that's where using your breathing exercises, you can place your hand over your stomach or even around your ribs and make sure that you're getting your belly to rise and fall and getting that air into your abdominal cavity and down into your pelvis. That way, your muscles are gonna reset themselves and really recognize how to use your pelvic floor properly. So breathing would be the first step of working on those maybe 10, 20 times on your back with your knees bent, just connecting your brain to this area down here and really thinking of breathing into your lower abdominals and into your pelvis. Then the next step, you're going to add a Kegel type exercise of inhaling, you stay relaxed, and then as you exhale, you're thinking of closing in that vaginal opening and tightening those muscles. I have a great video about Kegels, so that's another one you can go back and refer to about whether or not Kegels are good for you, but I talk about what it means to actually do one. So when you're syncing your breathing with your Kegel exercise, you're inhaling while your muscles are relaxed, and then you're exhaling and squeezing as they contract. This little reflex, and this is normally something that needs to be trained if you're coughing and sneezing and leaking at the same time, you usually can't do that. So going back to work on those, maybe take a few weeks to work on inhaling, relax, and then exhale, squeeze and do the Kegel, but you have to fully relax on your inhale. Now, if you've worked on those for a few weeks and then you test it with some things like little squats, so you're Kegeling and lifting in and up at those muscles as you stand up from the squat, you're inhaling as you lower, and then exhale, squeeze when you come up. That is going to reset that reflex and also teach your body how to really connect to those muscles as you're moving around. Because coughing, sneezing is very specific and can be very forceful, you can train this as well. So you can think of that Kegel exercise and tightening those muscles and then do a little fake cough. Do you feel your belly kind of push into your fingertips here when you're coughing? Do you feel yourself like pushing outward rather than staying drawn in and tightening those muscles in as you're coughing? Can you control that? Many times people can't if they're having this issue over and over with coughing and sneezing, that they're just pushing out into their abdominals or they're pushing down into their pelvic floor and they can't have that control. So that's something that you could train. And this, any type of reflex we're trying to train and retrain your body takes time. It may take 2 to 3 weeks, but you're doing it consistently because consistency over time is really going to make a difference. So to solve coughing and not leaking at the same time can be very frustrating. But number one, go see a pelvic floor physical therapist. Number two, work on some breathing exercises like I mentioned. And number three, the breathing with the Kegel exercise and the movement is going to be able to set those muscles up for success to train them what they need to do. Now, then number four, I mentioned training that reflex by tightening the muscles and doing a little cough at the same time while you try to keep those muscles tense and tight. Now, those 4 things are really helpful to stop leaking when you're coughing or sneezing. And I hope you found something helpful in this video. If you want to learn more about these frustrating pelvic issues that women have to deal with over their life and ways to help solve it on your own or get some guidance and tips, I've got some great videos on this channel. So hit the subscribe button to learn more. Now, are you doing any of these? Are you having this problem? Well, comment below, let me know. I love to answer questions all around pelvic floor issues and how women can really succeed in their health and just feel better in their own skin. So thank you so much for watching.